Well, good morning, folks. This is Billy Trout with the Tennessee Department of Revenue's Taxpayer Education Division. On behalf of our Commissioner, David Geragano, and others in our department, we certainly appreciate your attention to today's event and our webinar on Nexus, or presence in Tennessee. This is a topic that has a lot of moving pieces. It's very fact dependent, and we're going to give it our best shot to go through a lot of information with you here today in today's presentation. And we have some good folks with us, including Miss Katie Julian, who you see on your screen. Good morning, Katie. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
And we also have Jacob Roper with our with our audit division, and he will be here to give us some good comments as well. We want to thank Stephanie Bailey in Taxpayer Education, as well as our Assistant Director, Dan Vinson, for being available to help us with some chat questions today that you guys are going to have. So I want to call to your attention before we begin today's presentation, the information on your screen here about how to contact. If you can't hear me right now, you obviously aren't getting the same instructions, but hopefully you see the contact information here about connectivity. We will have a copy of today's presentation on our website tomorrow. And today's class materials, there's a link that we've put in chat that you can actually go to now, and you can look at a PDF of all the slides that we'll be going through today. We also will be referring you later on about how to get in contact with us on specific questions. And that's probably a good time to mention for this particular topic that in today's presentation, it's not really possible to discuss every scenario that you might have. We have a large number of participants today. We know that you're going to have some questions as well. So what our effort is in this presentation is to give you a basic overview of what Nexus is in Tennessee for out-of-state businesses so that you can understand better, number one, what those general premises are, and number two, how to seek extra information, okay? But we'll address as many questions as we can. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn this over to Miss Katie, who's going to walk us through some other information here. And we appreciate you attending today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Billy, and welcome. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this monthly free tax webinar. In case I forget to mention it later at the end, we do offer this free tax webinar every month. It's the last Tuesday of the month. Next month, we will be doing the same event on the 25th of October on Tennessee single article tax. And in November, our monthly free tax webinar is on online selling, e-commerce. So after here in just a little while after this event is over, you'll be able to register for next month's webinar in the same place where you went to this one, which is there, what you see on the screen, tn.gov/revenue, taxpayer education, and then tax webinars. And again, I just saw a chat message pop up. Where do I get a PDF of this presentation? That is where you can go to download the PDF of today's presentation, and then we'll have this recording later. As Billy said, up in the chat, you can also just follow the link directly. Any of the websites or links to notices and stuff like that that we mentioned today, if you download the PDF of the presentation, you'll be able to link over directly from that PDF. Just click on the link to go to that resource. So with that, I'll go ahead and start our presentation on out-of-state businesses and Nexus in Tennessee. So what is Nexus? Nexus is the requisite contact between a taxpayer and a state before that state has jurisdiction to tax the taxpayer. We have a lot of different taxes in Tennessee. We don't have an income tax anymore, but a lot of the taxes that we have are on businesses, and most of the time those businesses are located and have a physical presence in Tennessee. But there are a few tax types that we have where out-of-state businesses that don't have a physical presence in Tennessee will have Nexus, and those tax types are sales tax, business tax, and the franchise excise tax. So deciding whether a taxpayer has Nexus with any of these taxes is a little bit different per tax type, and we're going to break those down for these three tax types in this presentation. All right, we're going to start with sales tax. And on this slide, there's a lot of information, and this is basically just the basics of sales tax in Tennessee. And I know it's a lot of information on one slide, but it's just to give you, especially if you're not a business located in Tennessee, kind of an overview of how sales tax works in Tennessee. So sales tax applies to dealers engaged in the business of making sales of taxable products or taxable services in Tennessee. The retailers are responsible for collecting the tax from the consumers and then remitting that tax on a sales tax return to Tennessee. Breaking this down a little further, sales of tangible personal property or TPP. Almost all tangible property is taxable unless it's specifically exempted by Tennessee state law. Sales of services are typically, generally not taxable unless they're specifically listed or enumerated by law or are part of the sales price of tangible personal property. I'm going to just list here a couple of the taxable services. This is actually almost all the taxable services that would apply to most businesses. Repair and installation or cleaning of tangible personal property, and that does include software, computer software. Lodging services and rooms, short-term space rental for making sales, parking, storage of vehicles. I'll share some resources a little bit later with where you can get more information about that specifically. Sales are exempt if the purchase is made by an exempt entity, such as a reseller or nonprofit. Sales are exempt if the product is exempt. There are a few exempt products, for example, healthcare products, or if the usage is exempt. An example of that would be manufacturing. So the sales tax consists of a state sales tax rate, which is generally 7%. There are some special rates you see there on food, digital products. There's a single article special rate. So it's that state rate plus a local tax rate, and that is going to equal the total tax, sales tax, that is. And just a little side note, sales tax brings in about 60% of Tennessee's tax revenues. So a big chunk there of our tax revenue is through sales tax. All right, so sales tax nexus overview. We're going to walk through this, just some yes, no questions here to see about nexus with sales tax. So does the business have a physical presence in Tennessee? If the answer there is yes, if in-state tangible personal property sales meet the threshold of $4,800 plus annually, then that business is required to register and file Tennessee sales tax. And if the in-state service sales threshold of $1,200 annually is met, likewise, you need to register and file for Tennessee sales tax. If those thresholds are not met and there is a physical presence, there is no need to register and file for Tennessee sales tax. All right, so the answer to the question of does the business have a physical presence in Tennessee, the answer is no, which is pretty much what we're talking about here today. We're going to determine first if there's economic nexus met. We'll go into that. If so, you'll register and file for Tennessee sales tax. If substantial nexus is met, same, you'll register and file for Tennessee sales tax. If economic or substantial nexus is not met, you're not required to register and file for sales tax in Tennessee. All right, so first, economic nexus. Remote sellers with no presence, no physical presence in Tennessee must collect and remit sales tax on sales delivered into Tennessee. So remote sellers who meet the economic nexus threshold in Tennessee have to register, and that threshold is $100,000 within a 12-month period, and that is starting after July 31st of 2020. The threshold before that was higher, but now we're moving on a couple years past that. So at this point, the economic nexus sales threshold, and again, that is for sales delivered into Tennessee, is $100,000. And this is real important and also kind of different. The local sales tax is collected at the local jurisdictional rate. There used to be a flat rate for the local tax, but now it is based on where the product is delivered. And there is a database on our website. And when we go, I'll take you over to our website here in a little while and show you where you can find the boundary database to determine that local rate. And you can see there's a link there at the bottom of this slide. So if you're looking at the PDF, you can click right over to it from there.
Katie, I'll post that in chat. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks.
So, and there are some important notices regarding this, and I have a link to important notices at the end of this sales tax section as well. That local uniform rate used to be 2.25, but again, now the local rate is based on on the local rate to where it is delivered. An important part, just to go back a slide here, a very, very important part of this economic nexus and being able to report it correctly is going to be keeping good reports as to where your products, if you're located outside of Tennessee, delivering tangible personal product into Tennessee. It's very important to keep good records of exactly where it's delivered so that you can therefore then total everything up in order to file. With that, I'm going to take a quick little field trip with y'all because we did a webinar, a monthly webinar about this very subject. Let me go out of this and go into our website. We did a webinar about this specific topic back, I believe it was December of 21. Get it in front of me here. Can y'all see a web browser here?
Yes, Katie, we can see that.
Great.
We see you going to the website right now.
Wonderful. Okay, so on our tn.gov/revenue homepage here, I'm going to scroll down to taxpayer education, where we've talked about this a few times, and you've already been to this, clicked here if you even registered for today, which you had to. So now from taxpayer education, we're going to click on tax webinars and scroll all the way down to the webinar video library. This is where you'll find today's recording later today or tomorrow, but I'm going to show you where the webinar is that we did on this topic for sales tax. Scroll down a little bit. Reporting out-of-state sales by delivery destination. I'll let you know now too, if you click on, when you're in this webinar video library, if you click on the actual little YouTube looking push play link here, that's going to take you over to the recording. But if you click on the words below each one, that's going to take you over to the PowerPoint. And we do update these PowerPoints if there are ever law changes, procedure changes, changes to any kind of return that we talk about. We'll make those changes in the PDF. We won't re-record the webinar. So over time, it's probably a good idea to click on the link here, but just to show you and so you can get more details about how to report these sales, we go into detail here. I'm going to just scroll down through this PDF just a little bit here, and you can see keeping track here of where the shipments were, what jurisdiction the tangible personal property was sold to, and how to keep track of that. This webinar, let me kind of make it a little bit smaller here. This webinar does go into detail about how to find that local rate, and as well as how to report it on the tax return. We go into detail about that as well. So good resource there for, here's like just a snapshot of the return overview and how you're going to file that return and how you're going to enter those local codes into the returns. So we're not going to go into detail about that during this webinar today, but just so you know, there's a great resource out there for you to get more details about how to file those, how to file if you are out of state. So let me stop sharing the website real quick and go back over to the PowerPoint. Here we go. Okay. All right, so that was economic nexus. Now we're going to talk about substantial nexus. So the activities we're going to go over through the next few slides contains activities that would require an out-of-state business to register and collect and remit sales tax in Tennessee. So the first is selling taxable services in Tennessee. Also selling telecommunications services to subscribers located in Tennessee, leasing, renting, repairing, installing, assembling of tangible personal property in Tennessee, or using an agent or contractor to perform those duties. Also for substantial nexus, using employees, agents, independent contractors, etc., to solicit sales in Tennessee. Using third parties to conduct substantial business activities in Tennessee. Using company-owned trucks or contract carriers, acting as an agent for the seller. Using a Tennessee party to route customers to an out-of-state dealer, also known as click-through nexus. Also, substantial nexus includes maintaining store, office, or warehouse, showroom, etc. Space in Tennessee, maintaining inventory in Tennessee, or using an in-state independent contractor to fulfill Tennessee sales of inventory. And finally, for substantial nexus, it also includes Tennessee promotional activity by personnel. An example of that would be participation in trade shows, or physical Tennessee presence subsidiary acting as an agent of non-Tennessee dealer or conducting activities on behalf of the dealer. An example of that would be a retail store accepting returns made online. And I know that's a common thing these days as well. So a big subject here for sales tax nexus is marketplace facilitators. A marketplace facilitator, as you're probably aware, is a business that owns or operates a website or other platform where sales are made on behalf of a seller. An example of that would be Amazon, eBay, um, Wayfair. Marketplace facilitators that make or facilitate over $100,000 in sales to Tennessee customers over a 12-month period are required to collect and remit Tennessee sales tax. So the sales tax is collected on the sales made by those marketplace sellers to Tennessee customers. It's important to note that marketplace facilitators that do not have at least $100,000 in total sales to Tennesseans do not have this collection responsibility. We've got great information on this on our website. There's links here to how a marketplace facilitator with an active Tennessee registration should report those sales, and how an unregistered marketplace facilitator should register with the department and report the sales. Likewise, we've got marketplace sellers. So the marketplace seller is a person who sells goods or services through a marketplace that is owned, operated, or controlled by a marketplace facilitator. A marketplace seller that makes any sales outside of that marketplace facilitator website platform, so sales such as through their own website or their own storefront, may also be required to register for sales tax if they have a presence in the state, a physical presence, or if they have made $1,000 or more in sales to Tennessee during the previous 12-month period. So if the out-of-state seller is not required to register if all of its sales are made through that marketplace facilitator. All of its sales, we're saying. If all sales are made through the marketplace, that seller does not need to register for us. But again, if they make sales outside of that are to Tennesseans, they're still going to have to make that threshold of $100,000 or more in order to meet the filing requirement. And again, we've got additional guidance for sellers on our website. When we go over to the website again in a minute, I'll show you exactly where you can find that. But if you've got the PDF, you can just click on the link right there. All right, so now we're going to talk about helpful resources. We've got a manual, important notices, already showed you that webinar video archive. We've also got some help articles. So I'm going to leave again and go on another little field trip back over to our website. All right, so I'm back now at our tn.gov/revenue homepage, and I'm going to show you where our manual is. We've got some great tax manuals that we've been updating over the past few years. As a matter of fact, we just recently, this past month, uh, posted our new sales tax manual. These manuals are fantastic. Our audit division, where our special guest today, Jacob, works for audit, they put these together, and they are a very exhaustive resource on anything Tennessee tax related. I'm going to show you how to get there. So from our website, our homepage, tn.gov/revenue, you're going to click on tax resources, and then scroll down on the left-hand side under legal resources. You're going to click on tax manuals. And then you can see here, these are all the different tax manuals that we have. We'll be going into obviously business tax and franchise and excise tax here in a minute. I'm just going to click on the sales and use tax manual. It is a huge PDF. It's 350 pages. Again, like I said, this was the very first edition of this was in August of 22. We will no doubt be updating it just like we do all of our tax manuals with any new laws or clarifying information. But this is a great resource. If you're not already aware, in order to search a PDF, you can just click Control F and it brings up a little box there for you. If I typed in Nexus, you can see we've got about 20 instances of that word in here. Type in out of state. Whoa, we got about 92 instances of the term out of state in this manual. So lots of great information in our tax manuals. Highly recommend visiting our tax manuals if you have any questions about anything tax related in Tennessee. I'm going to go back over now to our homepage. I have it saved as a bookmark. Another
While you're
great,
while
yep,
you're doing that, Katie, I just wanted to jump in and say one thing. What Katie said about these tax manuals, really, we cannot say that enough. Guys, these manuals are phenomenal. There was a
they really
ton
are.
of effort put into our department for way over a year coming up with these comprehensive manuals. They are great, and please use them as a resource because we use them each and every day, all of us at work. So we're all working out of the same textbook, if you know what I
Mhm.
mean. Thanks.
That's right. We really do internally, our employees use these resources. There's just too much information about taxes in Tennessee to memorize it all. So we have to refer to these manuals daily. I really do go to our tax manuals multiple times a day, and it's a resource that we use and you can use as well. So um, just to get basic information about our taxes, you can click on the taxes tile or the tax drop down and go specifically to the tax you're interested in. I'm going to click on the tile here and scroll down to sales and use tax. You can see here there's a general overview. The menu over on the left-hand side for any of our taxes is going to take you to more information specific to that tax. Scroll down a little bit. Uh, Marketplace sellers, marketplace facilitators, and out-of-state dealers. This is where you're going to find great information about what I was just talking about. Additional information. If you are on this webinar, then this page right here is one I would definitely say to reference for you for additional information. Going back to the main sales tax page under important notices and other resources, that's where you're going to find links to all the important notices that are specific to sales tax. Once you click on important notices, you can search, put in search terms there if you want to drill down and get specific information or just perusing. Anytime there's new laws passed, which we just posted several important notices after this past legislative session, you can see here anything from May and June. Those are all important notices that we have posted since the recent laws that our General Assembly just passed this past spring. Going back over to the important notices and other resources, you can click directly onto that tax manual there. You can get the local tax rate list. I'm going to show you again. I'm jumping around just a little bit here, but I mentioned the local rate. I'm going to click on over on the left-hand side of the menu, the local sales tax and single article information. This is the local tax rate lookup information. That boundary database that I mentioned is right here. If you click on that, it downloads it for you. Lots of great information there. And one more place I'll take you to, going back over to our homepage, revenues homepage. You click on revenue help. We have information about TINTAP. We'll talk a little bit more about that, which is our online registering and filing portal. You can click on taxes and then it'll give you a drop down of all of our different tax types here and specific articles and kind of FAQs about this by clicking on, if I click on sales and use tax, you can see here we've got 183 articles about sales and use tax here. Another great place to go on revenue help is this out-of-state dealers, marketplace facilitators, and marketplace sellers. Breaks it down by dealers, facilitators, and sellers. Just going to click on one of these here, sales tax collection by out-of-state dealers. And we've got 8 articles specifically about this topic: sales threshold, how out-of-state dealers who meet sales thresholds can register with the department, how to apply the sales threshold, wholesale sales not included, when sales fall below the threshold, uh, timeline to start collecting tax after meeting that threshold. Lots of great information there that, again, if we were to go into all that, we'd probably be sitting here all day long in this webinar, but just wanted to point out those resources for you so you know where to go and research a little further later on when you've got the time. So let me stop sharing that and go back over to my PowerPoint. Okay, so business tax. Business tax basics. Business tax is a tax in Tennessee that is based on gross receipts of sales or services. The rate of business tax depends on what classification the business is and whether that business is a retailer or wholesaler. There are some deductions and credits available, and it is required for all entities with a standard business license in Tennessee and out-of-state businesses with Nexus. There are some exempt entities and exempt services. So we're going to focus now on that out-of-state businesses with Nexus part. So a business entity that is located outside of Tennessee will be subject to the state level business tax if it has substantial nexus. Important word here is and. So substantial nexus and engaged in specific activities and has at least $10,000 plus in Tennessee gross sales. There are some slightly different rules for contractors that we'll go into as well. And we're going to break this down, substantial nexus, what are those activities, and tie this all together for you here in the next few slides. For substantial nexus for business tax, it includes a company that is organized or commercially domiciled in Tennessee, or, important here is or, owns or uses capital in Tennessee, or has systematic and continuous business activity in Tennessee that has produced gross receipts attributable to customers in Tennessee, or has a bright line presence. And we're going to break down what does bright line presence mean. So any of these or any one of these 4 items here, if it's met, then there is Nexus in Tennessee for business tax. So bright line presence, let's, excuse me, dive a little deeper into bright line presence. So bright line presence can include total Tennessee business receipts exceeding the lesser of $500,000 or 25% of the business's total receipts everywhere during the tax period, or average value of real and tangible personal property owned, rented, and used in Tennessee exceeds the lesser of $50,000 or 25% of the average value of all the business's total real and tangible personal property, or total amount of compensation paid by the business in Tennessee exceeds $50,000 or 25% of the business's total compensation. And that has been a very common thing since in these post-COVID times, since a lot of people are working remote now and can work anywhere. A lot of people are moving to Tennessee because we do not have an income tax here. So if there are employees that are located in this state, that if the compensation exceeds 50K or 25% of that business's total compensation, that does meet bright line presence. All right, so what are the activities that are engaged that a business can engage in that would require Nexus or that would constitute Nexus? In addition to having substantial Nexus, a business must also be engaged in one of these activities, and they are, we reference TCA, Tennessee Code Annotated 67-4-717 here, and they are the sale of tangible personal property shipped or delivered to Tennessee, or sale of a service that is delivered into Tennessee, or leasing, renting of tangible personal property located in Tennessee. All right, so that gross sales threshold. So far, if you meet substantial nexus, if you engage in one of the activities we just listed, and you have over 10,000 in gross sales attributed to any county in Tennessee, then that out-of-state business is required to register and file for Tennessee business tax. We're going to talk for a minute about out-of-state contractors because things are a little bit different for out-of-state contractors. If that out-of-state contractor has annual gross sales of under 10,000 in Tennessee, no local business licenses are required, no state level business tax is required, no municipal or local level business tax is required. Now, if Tennessee gross sales annually are between 10,000 and 50,000, still no city or municipality license is needed, but a county business license will be needed. Now, this is only for contractors. For other types of businesses that do not have a physical presence in Tennessee, forget about business licenses. Just if you're not a contractor and this doesn't apply to you, don't worry about a business license. But if you are a contractor and you've got gross sales between 10K and 50K annually in Tennessee, you will need to get a county license. You will also be required to file the state level business tax, not municipal, not on the city level there. But if the gross sales in Tennessee annually are over $50,000, a city license is required, a county license, yes, required still, and you'll be paying the state level tax and the city or municipal level tax if your gross sales are over 50,000. I'm going to break that down for an example here. And I got this example, and there are many more examples that go more in depth on this in that business tax manual. So where we showed you the sales tax manual and how to get to that, the business tax manual has great examples to use for out-of-state contractors. For this one, it's a pretty simple example. We've got an out-of-state contractor that is domiciled in Kentucky but receives compensation of $10,000 in Davidson County, $21,000 in Williamson County, and $5,000 in Sumner County. Because they have receipts of $10,000 or more in at least one county, they should register for and file a return with the Tennessee Department of Revenue. The total taxable receipts are $31,000. So we're only looking at receipts here from the counties where over 10,000, that 10,000 threshold is met. So I'm going to go back one slide here just to show you how that works here. So we had under 10,000, switch back and forth. Sorry if this confuses you. We had under 10,000 in Sumner County. So no need to do anything there. But we had over 10,000 in Davidson County as well as Williamson County, right? So that county level business license will be required for Davidson and Williamson, and the state level tax will be owed. Since nothing fell over that $50,000 mark, $50,000 mark for this company's sales that we're talking about, they're not going to need to worry about the municipal level tax or getting a city license. This list, I'm not going to go through the whole list for the sake of time here, but
Katie,
these,
can
yes.
I interrupt you for just a
Sure.
moment? Would you go back to the business license slide?
That
I
one?
think we have a small error here in the middle, and I just want to go ahead and point it out. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to throw you off,
That's okay.
but for the $10,000 to $50,000 level for the business license required, the county license is actually a no on that. So we'll update these slides and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
That's no
I messed
problem.
up.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's okay. It's fine. You do owe the business tax. That is
that's right.
absolutely true. But that's just a small thing, and I just wanted to go ahead and point that out for clarity while we're doing the presentation today. And I'm sorry, Katie, I didn't mean to interrupt you at all.
I missed that when I was going through my
No
editing
big
of
deal.
this. I
Things
was going to see
happen.
if I could annotate this and cross that out, but I can't.
We're
I'd
fine.
mess up in practice. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
I
you
just
for
wanted to point
clarifying
it out.
that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm not going to go through each exemption here, but these are the businesses that are exempt from sales tax. Some services are exempt from, from business tax as well. Um, you can check this out and dive a little deeper into this through our business tax manual if you want to. Entities with both in-state and out-of-state locations. Um, we've got a company here that sells from 3 different physical locations in Tennessee and also has a Kentucky and Virginia location that makes sales of items to Tennessee customers. So this business is going to have to register each of its Tennessee locations and obtain a business license from the local city or county clerks and file for each of those locations. And then we'll register for its Kentucky and Virginia locations directly with the Tennessee Department of Revenue. And we'll have one state account for all of those out-of-state locations that do make sales and have the Nexus in Tennessee there. So we've got a list here of helpful business tax resources. I won't take you back over to the manual there because you know how to get there, hopefully. We also have a great webinar that we did recently on filing the business tax return. So if you go to the webinar video archive and click on business tax, you'll see very detailed webinar. We went into lots of detail about how to file that Tennessee business tax return. All right, moving on here to franchise and excise tax basics. In Tennessee, some people get confused between business tax and franchise excise tax, because franchise excise tax is a tax on businesses, but it's a different tax. It's a combination of franchise tax, which is the greater of net worth of the book value or real or tangible personal property owned or used in Tennessee, and excise tax is net earnings or income for the tax year. Entities are subject to F&E from the date of formation in Tennessee. Entities that are not registered with the Tennessee Secretary of State will be liable from the date they began operations or have substantial nexus in Tennessee. So what is that? For F&E tax, substantial nexus, a taxpayer without a physical presence in Tennessee may have substantial nexus in the state for F&E purposes if it meets this bright line presence. And this is going to look kind of familiar to you and look similar to that business tax bright line presence definition. At least 50,000 of property or payroll in Tennessee, 500,000 of receipts in Tennessee, or at least 25% of its local property, payroll, or receipts in Tennessee. Lots more information about that in our franchise excise tax manual that is just as wonderful as the other tax manuals we've been bragging about here. And there's also we've done several webinars about F&E, breaking down lots of different aspects of our F&E tax. So you can find those in the webinar video archive as well. All right, how to register, file, and pay. We've got an online tax portal. It's called TNTAP. You can get there from our main tn.gov/revenue homepage and just click on TNTAP. This is where you will register. You'd click on registration/exemption, view those links, and right from there, it just walks you right through exactly how to register for any of our tax accounts. Once you register for a tax account, you'll want to create a TNTAP logon to file and pay and kind of view the tax account as a whole or tax accounts. It's kind of like online banking. We recommend every taxpayer that has a tax account has a log on. I think we have a lot of third parties, maybe a lot of accountants on this webinar. You may already be familiar with our TINTAP system. And great information in that revenue help article section about how to register, how to create a logon, how to file, how to pay, all of that. Great information in revenue help there. All right, here's a slide that just kind of recaps the due dates for these 3 taxes that we talked about. For sales tax, typically monthly on the 20th of the month is the due date, and there is no extension option for sales tax. Business tax, the due date is the 15th day of the 4th month following the fiscal year end. Again, there's also no extension for business tax. And if there is a business tax account, even with no gross sales, if there's an open business tax account, the minimum filing there is $22 a year. For franchise and excise, likewise, it's due on the 15th day of the fourth month following the fiscal year end. There is an option for a 7-month filing extension. So for a December 31st fiscal year end business, that due date is April 15th, and the filing extension would be November 15th. And that's an extension to file, not an extension to pay. Estimated payments may be applicable for franchise and excise tax if there is a certain amount of tax liability in the previous year. And there is a minimum for F&E, any F&E account. The minimum is $100 for franchise. All right, I already pointed these out to you when I went over to our website, but just a little recap here of where the resources are. The manuals are going to be found under, if you click on tax resources on our website, registering, filing, and paying on TINTAP right there, our help articles and revenue help. And to click on taxes, you will find general tax info about all of our taxes. I am going to leave it on this slide right here, Billy and Jacob, as we move into answering some more questions from attendees and kind of chatting about this. But our website, tn.gov/revenue, for specific questions that you have or any questions that don't get addressed or answered during today's webinar, you would email revenue.support@tn.gov, and we answer those really quickly. And this is our general call center number. It's 615-253-0600. So we'll leave it here. And Billy, I've obviously been yapping quite a bit, so I see lots of stuff's popping up in chat. Jacob, if you want to come on now and join us, and we can start diving a little deeper into this and answering some questions.
Katie, can you just repeat everything you just said? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just
are we
kidding.
going to be here for
Starting
another
from
hour?
slide 1. Oh no, I'm not. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to anybody, especially
Right.
us and our participants today.
It's so
So
exciting. It's so much good info.
it's an amazing amount of information there, and we hope that the summary that we've been able to provide today, and Katie did such a great job of presenting it, was able to give you that good overview of what we're doing here too. But we've got Jacob here on the line with me. But maybe one thing to think about here is why. Why are we even talking about all this whole Nexus thing anyway? Well, I think it really gets down to tax issues that are going on, not just in Tennessee, but other states as well. And states in general have been for years looking to protect their economic interest. Our economy in the United States obviously is not local anymore when we can go online and buy things every single day that are sent from every single place in the United States and really outside the United States too. Our economy is more diverse. And the states, including Tennessee, want to tax entities equally. So we have our in-state businesses, like Katie was mentioning, with the presence tests that we have here and the different thresholds we have for in-state businesses. But the out-of-state businesses that meet the thresholds that we were talking about have this presence, either economic or bright line presence, that we are expecting the out-of-state businesses to participate equally in Tennessee, just as other states do. The $100,000 threshold that Katie mentioned is very typical in other states too, and some of you probably already know that. So with that in mind, just kind of keep that in mind. And that's why we have this webinar today for educational purposes. But, from a legislative standpoint, our state legislature has more or less come in line with other states and met that expectation as well. So, Jacob, welcome to you. It's good to see you today and give us a fresh perspective of a couple of different things. And I know that some of the participants have submitted some questions and stuff. I thought you might maybe want to pick one or two or three of them and we could talk about them for a few moments. Take it away, sir.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So you were required, or you were asked to submit questions prior to this webinar, and so we're just going to go over a couple of those that were submitted. So one of the questions would be requirements for drop shipments to Tennessee customers from a Kansas company. And what I wanted to say about that is our drop shipping rule was repealed. We have an important notice. It's important notice 22-01, and that rule was repealed effective January 10th, 2022. Let's see, and then another question for business tax. If we are an out-of-state company, do we report all sales for gross sales or just sales relevant to Tennessee customers? You will report on line 1 all of the sales to your Tennessee customers on your business tax return.
That trucking company question was kind of interesting, Jacob.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, about trucks that come through Tennessee, but really don't do anything else other than just travel through our state. They may not have a terminal here or anything else. They're just traveling through.
Sure. So that's really, so for sales tax, if you're just making sales of shipping on its own is not considered a taxable service in Tennessee. So that's for sales tax. For business tax, if you're just driving through Tennessee and not making sales into Tennessee, that does not establish Nexus.
I can't tell if Billy is frozen or not.
I think I was frozen there for a moment. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, I was just looking at some of the other questions here too, Jacob. Were there any ones that kind of hit you or any that may have come up in chat that you may have seen that may be interesting to folks?
Let's see. I didn't see too many questions from chat, but so there was one question. It's talking about a digital marketing agency from located out of state, and they specifically are selling prints to their Tennessee customers. So prints of whatever you're producing is considered tangible personal property and would be subject to sales tax in Tennessee. You would have to look at the Nexus requirements to determine whether you need to register and file with us.
That's great point too. A couple of the ones that I saw also, and Katie mentioned this too, is about the employees that telework in Tennessee. We get this question quite a bit through email and also through our call center, because like Katie had mentioned, people are working for companies in really lots of different states, but they might happen to be located here because they wish to live in Tennessee and their employer lets them do that. So, that $50,000 in employee compensation, I think that grabs quite a few people in as far as Nexus goes. Would you agree with that too, Jacob?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The $50,000 in employee compensation creating Nexus, on these taxes as well. Would you agree that that's bringing more registration requirements in for these out-of-state companies?
Yes, it establishes economic nexus for out-of-state
Right,
companies post
right.
um, the Wayfair decision at the Supreme Court. That might be getting a little bit too in depth, but yes, our economic nexus thresholds
Right.
have brought
And,
in additional registrations to Tennessee.
and and another thing, I think you even alluded to it earlier there too, and Katie probably mentioned it too, is the fact that when you have Nexus, that creates a registration requirement. So then you're going to be filing and remitting tax based off of that. Now, just because you have that Nexus requirement doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to owe lots and lots of money. Okay. What it means is that you have a filing and a payment requirement if that tax, like franchise and excise tax, as an example, having the $100 minimum tax, would be that, with business tax, there's a $22 requirement for the out of state as well. But we're not talking about a lot of money necessarily. But if your income is such that it's taxed and you're generating some significant amount of money in Tennessee for any of the three taxes that we've talked about today, then that could change. So in other words, there's registration and filing versus how much you're really going to end up paying. And that is very fact dependent. So that's probably worth mentioning there too. The other thing I want to mention as we wrap up here is what if you stop meeting the thresholds? What if you don't have these thresholds anymore? Your employee is moved out of the state, or you're not making sales here anymore. You're under the $100,000. What do you do? Well, honestly, what you do is you contact us and say, hey, we're going to close these accounts. Or you go out on the 10-tap system and say, hey, we're going to close these accounts because we no longer meet the threshold. Now, one thing to mention that a lot of taxpayers miss on, and tax preparers as well, is when you stop meeting the threshold or you're deciding to close the accounts, any tax returns that are still pending still have to be filed and paid. So in other words, if you cease business activity here in September of this year of 22, and you're talking about business tax and you're on a December fiscal year end, we're going to need that final business tax return for 22 to be filed. What you want to do is you want to contact us, let us know what's going on that, because we can make your 2022 tax period available now so you can go ahead and clean up all your records and you don't have to wait until next year to do that. And we're very happy to do that. So Katie has obviously provided the contact information here for us for our folks in email, which we have a great team in my group, which I'm really proud of them for what they do in their email responses. Any of you that have contacted us know how diligent we are on that. Our call center folks are great as well. We have several dozen people on the phone all the time. We do answer the phone. We literally answer the phone, guys. So make sure you contact us. We want to talk to you, and we want to help you get through your tax situation. So Jacob and Katie, is there any other information you wish to give?
There's one thing I want to make note of, Billy, for especially regarding sales tax for anyone that no longer meets that threshold of 100,000. It's important for them to know that it still may be something that they want to do it helps their customers actually if they still want to collect and then remit sales tax. If not, anyone in Tennessee that receives goods from outside of Tennessee where they didn't pay sales tax on it, they are going to be required to pay use tax. They're going to have to be required to pay sales tax on it here if they haven't already. So it's something that they can continue to do as a convenience to their customers. Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. And the other thing too is, just to reiterate one more time, when you cease operations in Tennessee for whatever reason, or for any of the taxes, not even just these three, but the other taxes that we deal with, it is super duper important to understand that we don't know that you've closed unless you tell us that you've closed. Okay. I know that sounds very, very basic, but we get so many questions, literally on a daily basis, about, I've received assessment letters, but I've been out of business for a year or two. Well, yeah, you need to let us know. You need to be proactive and hopefully go out on the 10-tap system and close your accounts. But even if you don't do that and you receive a letter and you're confused about it, that's why we're here to help you. Okay, don't let them stack up. Don't just put them aside, thinking, oh, well, I'll get to this some other time. Let's address your problems as we see them so that we can help you effectively manage your accounts. And we're glad to do it. We don't want you to pay any more than what you absolutely owe, and not a dime more. So we're here to help you in that effort. Okay. So I think our time is about up today. We want to thank everybody for joining us. We certainly have enjoyed talking to you today about these subjects. We thank Jacob and Katie, Stephanie, and Dan also back in the office. And we want you to also complete our survey when you leave today and give us some feedback about what you thought about today's presentation and any other comments you'd like to leave. Katie, do you have any final comments as well?
I do not. Just if you want a recording of this, if you want to view a recording of this, we'll have it up posted probably tomorrow. And I have gone ahead and fixed that contractor slide. So we'll be reposting the materials as well. You can get that on our website, the current PDF that has the fix on it, as well as the recording later today or tomorrow. And thank you all so much for being with us. Hope that you enjoyed the webinar and register for the upcoming webinars if you want to. Again, like I said, next month we have a webinar on single article tax, and then another very relevant one to probably a lot of people on this webinar will be the November e-commerce and internet sales webinar as well. So
Very
we usually
good.
post the link to register for the webinars later on in the day we have a webinar. So we don't want to get it confused and have them posted too far in advance. So you can register for next month starting later today.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and thanks for joining
Thanks,
us.
y'all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jacob, for joining us.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you,
everyone.
Jacob. Okay,
All
bye,
right. Bye,
everyone.
y'all.
Right.